you've had, and I hope still have, a friendship with Elon Musk, especially over the topic of AI. You have a lot of interesting
Mm.
ideas that you both share, concerns that you both share. Uh, well, let me first ask, what do you admire most about Elon?
Well, I had a lot of fun with Elon. I like Elon a lot. I mean, the Elon I knew as a friend, I like a lot, and it's not going to surprise anyone. I mean, he's done and he's continuing to do amazing things, and I think he's uh, I think if many of his aspirations are realized, the world will be a much better place. I think it's amazing to see what he's built and what he's attempted to build and what he may yet build. And
So with Tesla, with SpaceX, with
yeah, no, I'm a fan of almost all of that. I mean, there are wrinkles to a lot of that, or some of that.
all
And
humans are full of wrinkles.
there's something very Trumpian about how he's acting on Twitter. Right? I mean, Twitter. I think he thinks Twitter's great. He bought the place because he thinks it's so great. I think Twitter's driving him crazy. Right? I think he's needlessly complicating his life and harming his reputation and creating a lot of noise and harming a lot of other people. I mean, so like the thing that I objected to with him on Twitter is not that he bought it and made changes to it. I mean, that was not. I remain agnostic as to whether or not he can improve the platform. It was how he was personally behaving on Twitter, not just toward me, but toward the world. I think when forward an article about Nancy Pelosi's husband being attacked, not as he was by some lunatic, but that it's just some gay tryst gone awry, right? That's not what it seems. And you link to a website that previously claimed that Hillary Clinton was dead and that a body double was campaigning in her place. That thing was exploding in Trumpistan as a conspiracy theory, right? And it was having its effect. And it matters that he was signal boosting it in front of 130 million people. And so it is with saying that your former employee, Yoel Roth, is a pedophile, right? I mean, it's like that has real consequences. It appeared to be complete bullshit. And now this guy's getting inundated with death threats, right? And Elon, that's totally predictable, right? And he's behaving quite recklessly. And there's a long list of things like that he's done on Twitter. It's not ethical. It's not good for him. It's not good for the world. It's not serious. It's a very adolescent relationship to real problems in our society. And so my problem with how he's behaved is that he's purported to touch real issues by turns. Like, okay, do I give the satellites to Ukraine or not? Do I minimize their use of them or not? Should I publicly worry about World War III or not? Right? He's doing this shit on Twitter, right? And at the same moment, he's doing these other very impulsive, ill-considered things, and he's not showing any willingness to really clean up the mess he makes. He brings Kanye on, knowing he's an anti-Semite who's got mental health problems, and then kicks him off for a swastika, which I probably wouldn't have kicked him off for a swastika. It's like that's even like, can you really kick people off for swastikas? Is that something that you get banned for? I mean, are you a free speech absolutist if you can't let a swastika show up? I'm not even sure that's enforceable terms of service, right? There are moments to use swastikas that are not conveying hate and not raising the risk of violence.
Clip that.
Yeah. But so much of what he's doing, given that again, scale matters. He's doing this in front of 130 million people. That's very different than a million people. And that's very different than 100,000 people. And so when I went off the tracks with Elon, he was doing this about COVID. And, again, this was a situation where I tried to privately mitigate a friend's behavior, and it didn't work out very well.
Did you try to correct him, sort of highlighting things he might be wrong on?
Yeah.
Or did you use the Lex Power Love method? I should write like a pamphlet for Sam Harris to
Well, no,
follow.
but it was totally coming from a place of love because I was concerned about his reputation. I was concerned about
Sure.
there was a twofold concern. I could see what was happening with the tweet. I mean, he had this original tweet that was I think it was panic over COVID is dumb or something like that. Right.
Mhm.
This is in March. This is early March, 2020.
Oh,
Right.
super early days of
Super
COVID.
early. So when nobody knew anything, but we saw what was happening in Italy. Right. It was totally kicking off. Um,
God, that was a wild time. That's
and
when the
it was
toilet
wild. It
paper.
was totally wild. But that became the most influential tweet on Twitter for that week. I mean, it had more engagement than any other tweet, more than any crazy thing Trump was tweeting. I mean, it went off again. It was just a nuclear bomb of information, and I could see that people were responding to it like, "Wait a minute, okay, here's this genius technologist who must have inside information about everything, right? Surely he knows something that is not on the surface about this pandemic." And they were reading into it a lot of information that I knew wasn't there, right? At the time I didn't think he had any reason to be suggesting that. I think he was just firing off a tweet, right? So I reached out to him in private, and I mean, because it was a private uh, text conversation, I won't talk about the details, but I'm just saying that's a case, among the many cases of friends who have public platforms and who did something that I thought was dangerous and ill-considered. This was a case where I reached out in private and tried to help, genuinely help, because it was just I thought it was harmful in every sense because it was being misinterpreted, and it was like, oh, okay, you can say that panic over anything is dumb, fine, but this was not how this was landing. This was like non-issue conspiracy. There's going to be no COVID in the U.S. It's going to peter out. It's just going to become a cold. I mean, that's how this was getting received. Whereas at that moment, it was absolutely obvious how big a deal this was going to be, or that it was going to, at minimum, going to be a big deal.
I don't know if it was obvious, but it was obvious that it was a significant probability that it could be a big. I
Yeah,
remember in March, it wasn't unclear like
it
how big, because there were still stories of it. Like it's probably going to like the big concern. The hospitals might overfill, but it's going to
yeah,
die
we
out in
didn't.
like 2 months or something.
Yeah, we didn't know, but there was no way we weren't going to have tens of thousands of deaths at a minimum at that point. And
Yeah.
it was totally rational to be worried about hundreds of thousands. And when Nicholas Christakis came on my podcast very early, he predicted quite confidently that we would have about 1 million people dead in the U.S. Right, and that didn't seem, it was, I think appropriately hedged, but I mean, it was just like, okay, it's just gonna, you just look at we're just kind of riding this exponential, and it's going to be, it'd be very surprising not to have that order of magnitude and
Mm.
not something much, much less. And so anyway, I mean, to close the story on Elon, um, I could see how this was being received, and I tried to get him to walk that back, and then we had a fairly long and detailed exchange on this issue, and that intervention didn't work, and it was not done. I was not an asshole. I was not. I was just concerned. For him, for the world, you know, um, and then there are other relationships where I didn't take but again, that's an example where taking the time didn't work, right? Privately. There are other relationships where I thought, okay, this is just going to be more trouble than it's worth. And I just ignored it, and there's a lot of that. Again, I'm not comfortable with how this is all netted out
Right.
because I don't know if, and I'm not, frankly, I'm not comfortable with how much time in this conversation we've spent talking about these specific people. Like, what good is it for me to talk about Elon or Brett or
I think
any
there's a
people
lot of
in
good
public?
because those friendships. Listen, as a fan, these are the conversations that I loved love as a fan, and it
Mm.
feels like COVID has robbed the world of these conversations because you were exchanging back and forth on Twitter, but that's not what I mean by conversations. Like long form discussions, like a debate about COVID, like a normal
But
debate.
there is no, Elon and I shouldn't be debating COVID.
You should be. Here's the thing with humility. like basically saying we don't really know, like the Rogan method.
Right.
We don't. We're just a bunch of idiots. Like one is an engineer, you're a neuroscientist, but like it just kind of okay. Here's the evidence, and be like normal people. That's what everybody was doing. The whole world was like trying to figure out what the hell, what.
Yeah, but the issue was that at the moment I had this collision
Yeah.
with Elon, certain things were not debatable, right? It was just, it was absolutely clear where this was going. It wasn't clear how far it was going to go or how quickly we would mitigate it, but it was absolutely clear that it was going to be an issue, right? The train had come off the tracks in Italy. We knew we weren't going to seal our borders. There were already people, there are already cases known to many of us personally in the U.S. at that point. And he was operating by a very different logic that I couldn't engage with.
Sure, but that logic represents a part of the population, and there's a lot of interesting topics that have a lot of uncertainty around them, like the effectiveness of masks. Like,
but where things broke down was not at the point of, oh, there's a lot to talk about, a lot to debate. This is all very interesting, and who knows what's what. It broke down very early at this is, there's nothing to talk about here. It's like either there's a water bottle on the table or there isn't, right? Like
well, technically, there's only 1/4 of a water bottle.
Right, yeah.
So what defines a water bottle? Is it the water inside the water bottle, or is it the water bottle? What I'm giving you as an example of it's worth a conversation.
This is difficult because we had an exchange in private, and I want to
Sure.
I want to honor not exposing the details of it, but the details convinced me that there was not a follow-up conversation on that topic.
On this topic.
Yeah.
That said, I hope to be part of helping that happen, that the friendship is rekindled, because one of the topics I care a lot about, artificial intelligence, you've had great public and private conversations about this topic. And
and Elon was very formative in my taking that issue seriously. I mean, he and I went to that initial conference in Puerto Rico together, and it was only because he was going, and I found out about it through him, and I just rode his coattails to it. That I got dropped in that side of the pool to hear about these concerns at that point.